The crystalline halls of the Galaxy Council chambers resonated with tension as Ambassador Barris walked through the towering archways. His boots echoed against the polished floors, each step measured and deliberate. Behind him, his aide Melissa carried a sealed briefcase containing humanity's response to what the Council had termed their final warning. The assembled delegates, a mixture of tentacled Vorthak, crystalline Zephyrians, and gaseous Nethri contained within environmental suits, turned their various sensory organs toward the human representatives. High Chancellor Vexthul, a towering Vorthak whose purple skin glistened under the chamber's artificial lighting, raised one of his forearms. Ambassador Barris of the Terran Federation. Vexthul's voice boomed through the translation matrix. You stand before this council accused of violating 17 interstellar treaties, expanding into 43 restricted systems, and conducting illegal terraforming operations on protected worlds. Barris stopped at the center of the chamber, his weathered face betraying no emotion. Years of diplomatic service had taught him the value of appearing unruffled, especially when facing extinction-level threats. High Chancellor, honored delegates, he began, his voice carrying clearly without artificial amplification. Humanity acknowledges your concerns. A ripple of movement passed through the assembled aliens. Councillor Shimara, her crystalline form refracting the chamber's light into rainbow patterns, chimed melodically. Acknowledges? Ambassador, your species has ignored our warnings for over 50 standard years. You have consumed resources at an unprecedented rate, established colonies without permission, and worst of all, her voice grew sharp, you have begun uplifting primitive species without council approval. Melissa stepped forward, placing the briefcase on the central podium. Her fingers danced across the biometric locks and it opened with a soft hiss. Inside lay a single data crystal, no larger than a human thumb. What is the meaning of this? Demanded Councillor Grathnor, his gaseous form swirling angrily within his containment suit. Barris lifted the crystal, holding it up to catch the light. This contains humanity's formal response to your ultimatum. He paused, scanning the faces and forms around him. But first, allow me to tell you a story. This is no time for, Vexthul began, but Barris continued. 600,000 years ago, when your species were still developing language and fire, humanity faced extinction on a frozen world. An ice age that should have wiped us out completely. His voice grew stronger. We didn't have faster-than-light travel, energy shields, or matter converters. We had stone tools and the desperate will to survive. The chamber fell silent. Even the ever-shifting Nethri seemed to still. Do you know what we did? Barris asked, beginning to walk slowly around the chamber's perimeter. We adapted. We learned to hunt mammoth-sized creatures with nothing but sharpened sticks and cooperation. We discovered fire, built shelters, and when the world tried to freeze us out, we refused to die quietly. Councillor Shimara's crystal form dimmed slightly. What relevance does this primitive history have to everything? Melissa interjected, her voice cutting through the chamber like a blade. Because while your species were given worlds with perfect climates, abundant resources, and peaceful development, humanity learned to thrive in hell. Barris nodded, inserting the crystal into the chamber's data port. Holographic displays materialized throughout the room, showing star charts, fleet positions, and resource allocations. You see, honored council, you've made a fundamental error in your calculations. The displays showed the true extent of human expansion, not the 43 systems the council knew about, but over 300. Mining operations in asteroid fields considered impossible to work. Colonies thriving on worlds with surface temperatures that would melt most known alloys. Research stations orbiting black holes and diving into gas giant atmospheres. You assume we expanded out of greed, Barris said, his voice now carrying an edge that made several delegates shift uncomfortably. You couldn't be more wrong. We expanded out of necessity, because a species that learned to survive an ice age doesn't just settle for comfortable worlds. High Chancellor Vexthul's skin had paled to a sickly lavender. This is impossible. Our surveys showed those systems were uninhabitable. Uninhabitable for you, Melissa corrected. But humanity didn't evolve in paradise. We evolved in a crucible. She gestured to the displays. Every protected world you've forbidden us from touching, we've not only colonized them, we've improved them. The holographics shifted, showing before and after images of barren worlds transformed into thriving ecosystems. Toxic atmospheres converted to breathable air. Irradiated wastelands turned into fertile farmland. As for uplifting primitive species without permission, Barris said, his diplomatic mask finally slipping to reveal something far more dangerous beneath. We learned long ago that survival isn't a solo endeavor. Every species we've helped has volunteered to join our federation, not through conquest or coercion, but through mutual benefit. Councillor Grathnor's gaseous form churned violently. You dare threaten the Galaxy Council? Barris smiled then, and it was not a pleasant expression. Threaten? No, Councillor. We're simply declining your kind offer of extinction. He pressed a control on his wrist device, and the chamber's displays shifted once more. Now they showed something that made the assembled aliens recoil in horror. Human fleets. Thousands of ships that had been invisible to Council sensors, emerging from hidden positions throughout the galaxy. Not just warships, but massive construction vessels, terraforming platforms, and colony ships. You see, Melissa said softly, while you were debating whether to grant us the privilege of continued existence, we were preparing for the eventuality that you might choose poorly. This is your final warning, Barris announced, his voice now carrying the authority of an entire species that had clawed its way up from primordial ice. Humanity will continue to expand, explore, and evolve. We will help species that want our help, terraform worlds that need our touch, and push the boundaries of what's possible. He looked directly at each council member in turn. You can either adapt to a galaxy with humanity in it, or you can try to stop us. But remember, we're the species that survived an ice age with sharp sticks and stubbornness. We've had a lot of time to improve our tools. The silence that followed was profound. Finally, High Chancellor Vexthal spoke, his voice barely above a whisper. What? What do you want from us? Barris's expression softened slightly, returning to diplomatic neutrality. Partnership, if you're wise enough to accept it. The galaxy is vast enough for all of us, but only if we work together instead of trying to cage the species that refuses to be contained. As he and Melissa turned to leave, Barris paused at the chamber's threshold. Oh, and Council? Next time you want to issue an ultimatum to humanity, you might want to make sure you're not surrounded first. The great doors closed behind them with a sound like thunder, leaving the Galaxy Council to contemplate their first real lesson in human diplomacy. Sometimes the only way to deal with a species forged in ice and fire is to offer them a seat at the table, rather than trying to show them the door.